Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This video uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. We've chosen to dive into Bad Cree. It's Jessica John's debut novel, and it's a chilling exploration of grief and family and indigenous identity, all tangled up with, the unsettling power of dreams. For this deep dive, we're going straight to the source, the book itself, to understand how Johns uses horror to explore, the lasting impact of colonialism.
An intriguing approach, for sure. By focusing solely on the novel, I think we can really peel back the layers of the narrative and examine the symbolism, the characters, and the themes without, any outside interpretations clouding our view.
Right. And right for the first page, you were just thrown into this incredibly vivid scene. Mackenzie, our main character, waking up clutching a crow's head. I mean, talk about a nightmare. This isn't just some random scare tactic, though, is it?
Not at all. The crow is often seen as a trickster figure in Indigenous folklore. And I think it immediately sets a tone of unease. It foreshadows the novel's exploration of the darker side of Cree traditions, where dreams aren't just passive experiences, they hold power, potential, even danger.
And that danger seems to be calling Mackenzie back to her past. She's living in Vancouver, trying to escape the trauma of her sister Sabrina's death. But these intense, disturbing dreams, centered around Sabrina, keep pulling her back to her hometown in northern Alberta.
Yeah, this push and pull between the modern urban world and the traditional lands is so central to the Indigenous experience. It's a struggle to reconcile those two worlds, to honor your roots, while navigating the complexities of modern life.
Right. It makes me think of that saying, you can't go home again. But for Mackenzie, it's not just a choice. It's almost like she's being forced back by these dreams. And then there's this added layer of mystery with the scar. Mackenzie notices a scar on Sabrina's collarbone in her dreams, a scar that wasn't there in real life. Where does this fit in?
The scar is key. It highlights the growing disconnect between Mackenzie's memories and the reality presented in her dreams. It suggests that something is deeply wrong, pushing her, and us as readers, to question what's real and what's a manipulation. This is where Johns skillfully weaves in the terrifying figure of the Wendigo from Cree folklore.
Okay, the Wendigo. It's not your typical monster, right?
Definitely not. Think of it like a vampire. But instead of blood, it craves something much deeper. Our connection to land, family, our very identity. It embodies the potential for darkness and consumption. And in the context of the novel, it becomes a powerful symbol of the destructive forces that have plagued Indigenous communities for generations.
That's such a chilling thought.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, Mackenzie isn't alone in these unsettling dreams. Her mother, aunt, and cousin all share a history of vivid, sometimes even shared dreams.
Yeah, this shared dreaming is more than just a spooky element. It emphasizes the profound importance of oral history and kinship ties in Indigenous cultures. Knowledge, particularly knowledge of the spirit world, is passed down through generations, binding them together. It's almost as if the dreams themselves become a form of storytelling, a way to transmit knowledge that transcends words.
So we've got this unsettling connection to the spirit world, the mysterious scar, and the looming presence of the Wendigo. I'm already hooked. And we're just scratching the surface. But before we go any deeper, I think it's time for us to take a breath and really consider what this all means for Mackenzie. What does she stand to lose if she can't unravel this mystery?
Well, I think what Mackenzie stands to lose is her connection to everything that makes her who she is. Her family, her heritage, her very identity are all intertwined with the land and the spirits that inhabit it. If the Wendigo consumes her, it consumes a part of that shared history.
Yeah, one thing that really struck me about this book is how Johns uses the setting to amplify this sense of dread. The vast, isolated landscape of northern Alberta almost becomes a character itself, mirroring the feelings of vulnerability that Mackenzie's experiencing.
That's a great observation. The setting isn't just a backdrop, it's an active force in the narrative. The vastness of the landscape should feel liberating. But instead, it emphasizes Mackenzie's isolation. It becomes a space where she's both physically and emotionally exposed.
Right, and it's not just the physical isolation, it's the weight of history, too.
Yeah.
You get this palpable sense of the legacy of colonialism woven into the very fabric of the story, even if it's not explicitly stated.
Exactly. The historical trauma inflicted upon Indigenous communities becomes an undercurrent, a force as real and present as the Wendigo itself. It shapes the characters' actions, their fears, and their relationships with each other.
And then there's the fact that most of the dreams, the most terrifying encounters with the Wendigo, take place in winter. It's not just a coincidence, right?
Absolutely not. In Cree culture, winter is a time of hardship, a time when resources are scarce. And survival is a daily struggle. By setting these crucial scenes in winter, Johns taps into a deeper cultural understanding of vulnerability. It's as if the Wedigo thrives in this environment, feeding off the desperation and isolation that winter brings.
Right. It's like the cold itself becomes a manifestation of the Wedigo's presence,
Yeah.
seeping into the dreams and into the waking world. This might seem like a minor detail, but it adds so much to the atmosphere of the book.
The details are crucial. And speaking of details, we can't overlook Mackenzie's relationships, especially with her family. They're so central to understanding her struggle. Her connection with her sisters and cousin is a source of both strength and immense conflict.
Yeah, I was particularly struck by her relationship with Tracy. There's this underlying tension between them, a sense of resentment and guilt that hangs over their interactions.
That tension stems from Mackenzie's decision to leave home, to try and build a life separate from her family and their shared trauma. It's a common experience, this desire to escape the pain of the past. But it often comes at a cost.
And for Mackenzie, that cost is amplified by the guilt she carries over not being there when Sabrina died. The Wedigo exploits this guilt, using it to drive a wedge between Mackenzie and her sisters.
It highlights a key theme, the ways in which trauma, both personal and collective, can fracture relationships. It shows how difficult it can be to communicate and heal when everyone is carrying the weight of unspoken pain.
So you've got this external force, the Wedigo, exploiting internal conflicts and preying on Mackenzie's vulnerabilities. But it's not just Mackenzie who's targeted. The Wedigo seems to be manipulating everyone around her, feeding off their fears and desires.
That's the insidious nature of colonialism. It doesn't just oppress individuals, it seeks to dismantle entire communities. By turning people against each other, it preys on existing tensions and amplifies them, making it that much harder to resolve.
Okay, so things are looking pretty bleak for Mackenzie and her family at this point. But where do they go from here? How do they fight back against something that seems so deeply ingrained in their history and their personal lives?
That's the question that drives the heart of the novel. And to find the answer, we have to delve into the power of community, the strength of shared stories, and the importance of reclaiming your narrative.
I love how you phrase that, reclaiming your narrative. It's not just about surviving the Wedigo. It's about reclaiming agency in the face of trauma. But before we get to that, there's a scene that really stuck with me. The one where Mackenzie and her mom are scavenging for wood in that abandoned barn.
Such a powerful scene. It's quiet, almost mundane, yet it's filled with this unspoken tension, this deep longing for connection.
Yes. It's like they both want to reach out to each other.
Yeah.
But they're held back by years of hurt and unspoken words. And it's in that moment that her mom reveals she used to have similar dreams, dreams that she learned to suppress.
That revelation is key. It suggests that this connection to the spirit world and the vulnerability that comes with it isn't unique to Mackenzie. It's a legacy passed down through generations of women in their family.
It's almost as though the ability to dream, to connect with the spirit world, is both a gift and a burden. But how does this help them fight the Wedigo?
It's a step towards understanding. By acknowledging the shared history, by recognizing the patterns that repeat across generations, Mackenzie starts to see the Wedigo in a new light. It's not just a monstrous entity, it's a manifestation of the pain and suffering inflicted upon her people for centuries.
And that realization feels like a turning point in this story. It's no longer just a personal fight for survival. It's about something much larger. It's about the survival of her culture, her family's legacy, and her people's connection to the land.
Exactly, and that sense of purpose fuels the climax of the novel, where Mackenzie, her sisters, and her cousin decide to confront the Wedigo head-on.
It's a risky move. But they're determined to protect their family and their community. They draw on their cultural knowledge, their connection to the land, and their bond with each other to fight back against this force that threatens to consume them.
It's a powerful testament to the resilience of Indigenous women. They refuse to be victims. They choose to fight back, to reclaim their narrative and rewrite their own ending.
And the outcome, without giving too much away, is left open to interpretation. It's both hopeful and unsettling, suggesting that the fight against injustice is ongoing. There are no easy victories, no guarantees of complete healing.
That ambiguity is crucial. It acknowledges the complexities of trauma, both personal and collective, and the ongoing struggle for healing and justice. It suggests that even in victory, there are scars that remain.
It's a lot to process, I have to admit. Bad Cree is so much more than just a horror novel. It's a layered exploration of identity, trauma, and the power of community. But we've only scratched the surface here.
There's so much more to unpack, so many layers of meaning woven into the narrative. but I think it's time we wrap up this deep dive.
I keep thinking about those dream sequences, how vivid and disturbing they were. John's writing is so visceral. You can practically feel the cold seeping into your bones, that prickling unease that permeates Mackenzie's every encounter with the Wendigo.
Yeah, it's that sensory detail that truly draws you into the story. You're not just reading about Mackenzie's experiences, you're feeling them alongside her. And that ending, and without giving too much away, it's both hopeful and unsettling.
I was left with this feeling that the battle against the Wendigo isn't over, that it might be an ongoing struggle, something that Mackenzie, and maybe even her community, will always have to be vigilant about.
I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of the novel. John's doesn't offer a simple resolution, like a happily ever after. She leaves us with a sense of the cyclical nature of trauma and the importance of continuous healing and resistance. It's a message that resonates far beyond the pages of the book.
Yeah, it makes you think about the unseen forces. That might be a play in our own lives, the things we inherit from our past, the systems that continue to oppress and exploit. We may not be facing a literal Wendigo, but there are always battles to be fought, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
And that's what makes Bad Cree so compelling. It's more than just a horror story or a coming-of-age tale. It's a call to action, an invitation to examine the complexities of our own histories, and to recognize the power we have to challenge the forces that seek to diminish us.
I have to say, this deep dive has given me a whole new appreciation for the power of storytelling. Bad Cree isn't just entertaining, it's thought-provoking, unsettling, and ultimately empowering. It's a story that will stay with me for a long time.
It's a novel that deserves to be read and discussed widely. Johns has crafted a story that is both deeply personal and universally relevant, a testament to the strength and resilience of Indigenous communities, and a powerful indictment of the ongoing legacy of colonialism.
So if you're looking for a book that will challenge you, captivate you, and leave you with a renewed sense of hope and responsibility, I highly recommend Bad Cree by Jessica Johns.
It's a story that will open your eyes to the unseen forces that shape our lives and inspire you to take action against the darkness that threatens to consume us.
And if you want to experience the chilling world of Bad Cree for yourself, be sure to subscribe to this channel and purchase the book using the link below. You won't regret it.